I am going to be talking about Savannah. And I'm going to start out by saying life is like a box of chocolates. You never really know what you're going to get. And I have to admit, I did not know what to expect from Savannah. I had read like this much about it back in high school. There was a class on American history, and they were talking about the founding colonies. And I remember that they mentioned Savannah had been started rather late, and that it was originally a penal colony and a planned city. Okay, disappointment, fake news. It really wasn't a penal colony, but it was a planned city. And I'm going to be discussing just a bit of that. Very disappointing to find out that your actual high school history book had false facts in it. But this is, what you're seeing now are some maps and things around Savannah. And if you look over on that where it says Savannah Historic District and those gray squares and areas, it was a planned city. It is a planned city. And those squares, those gray squares, are what makes it unique. Those are little parks, squares throughout the city. When they planned this out, they wanted it nice little walking districts, and basically each of the residential and business districts are planned around these small squares. You can walk just a block or two and you're now in another small district. This is a wonderful walking city. And because of the way it's laid out with these squares sort of blocking the flow of traffic every few blocks, traffic moves slow, 20, 25 miles an hour. The drivers are polite and the squares are wonderfully done. You can see there we have a picture of a fountain. There in the middle of one of these squares, they are wonderful. They're green. They have trees all around them. And another one, we see a statue of Revolutionary War memorial, and my son, Smith, standing in front of it. But the neat thing about these squares is because there's so much open room every few blocks, the houses are actually closer together, but you still get a feeling of space. Now, if you notice in the upper right-hand corner, if you don't like walking, there's a red line that sort of weaves in and out throughout the entire Savannah Historical District. That's the Savannah Stop and Go Trolley. Yeah, it's a paid tour, but if you don't like walking, get on this. It'll take you all over the city, stopping at places of historical interest, stopping at places of shopping interest, stopping at places you might just want to stop and eat. But going on, I'm going to say Savannah is for tourists. My son and I down here by the water. Now, I'm going to point out this middle one that says historical steps, use at your own risk. This is not a casual warning. These are the actual steps that they probably were using back in the 18th century and the 19th century. These, you can't get a good perspective, they're almost reach up to my kneecap. You are walking up these tall stone stairways, and you are risking your life on each step. But it is interesting as a tourist if you want to try it. Yes, there are wheelchair accessible places around to get up from one level to the other. This is by the city, and you're down at the riverfront and want to sort of get up from the riverfront to the city, you're going to have to find a road, a staircase, or in the few cases, the elevator to take you up there. And as you can see in one of the other pictures, they are constantly trying to preserve the city, do reconstruction. Yes, it's a historical building. My son and I laughed a lot because when we looked at the sign out front of it, it's a sushi restaurant. Yes, a historical sushi restaurant, but they are still trying to preserve the building and everything that was done there. And down in the bottom, but like any tourist place, many, many, many places to eat and gain weight. That's right. This was one of our breaks. It does rain there. This is Savannah. This is not Southern California. So if you have a chance, I encourage you to go out, and if you're on a diet, then do yourself a favor and change your behavior to savor the flavor of Savannah. But Savannah is for history. This was the first colony in Georgia, 1733. Now, if you stop and think about that, that's only a couple decades before the Revolutionary War. Really rather late, but they started it back then. And it was just a small colony, a planned colony. And okay, they did bring over, turns out after they got the colony going, got it established, they went to the debtors' prison and basically offered some debtors, hey, here's your chance. You can go over to Savannah as an indentured servant, or you can sit here in the prison and rot for a few more years. So guess what? Yeah, it wasn't really a penal colony, but they did bring people over who came there out of the debtor's prison, who worked in Savannah and helped settle it. And here you see a wonderful riverfront, very old structures. You see the gold-topped city hall there on the river. Just a beautiful place for tourists to go. But one other thing that I found very interesting, Savannah is for partying. Didn't really pick it up as a party place. Well, I don't know how much prisoners party, but I came here. Now, you notice the guy standing there with a plastic cup, and in it, probably beer. It turns out that in the historic district of Savannah, it is an open container law where you can carry a plastic cup up to 16 ounces filled with your favorite alcoholic beverage. And so I'm walking around there, and yes, there are people walking me around carrying obviously beers, margaritas, daiquiris, and they are having a good time. I think that's one of the reasons they come to Savannah. I mentioned taking the trolley. This probably isn't the trolley that some of us would be taking. This is a pedal pub where you sit there and you are actually pedaling away, or at the same time you can be drinking your favorite beverage as you tour the city. So there are options if you do want to try to work off some of the calories of the good food that you've been having. But the other thing Savannah has, since it's an older city, a lot of people going through it, many ghost tours. That's right. You can go to the graveyards, visit haunted houses, but you'll see over here in the lower right-hand corner is a haunted pub crawl. You got to combine the things. You got an open container law. You got haunted houses. Put them together. This one I have to put together just for grammarian. You might want to know it. This one is called Beer and Booze. So it was a wonderful time there. Like I say, a lovely city, totally unexpected. And Savannah is Forrest Gump, because this, in those squares I was telling you about, is where the opening scene of Forrest Gump was filmed. And as my mama always said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And I didn't know what I was going to get from Savannah, but I enjoyed what I got. Madam Toastmaster.